Welcome to Change the Narrative. I'm your host, JD Fuller.
I'm Susie Younger,
an African-American licensed psychotherapist.
I'm also a licensed therapist.
We talk about the isms. We talk about the phobias, anything that marginalizes and oppresses.
As a white woman, I ask the questions white people are too afraid to ask.
Everything we are not and everything we are is because of fear. Through a mental health lens, Susie and I will have difficult conversations with celebrity guests, political activists, and everyone in between. Our mind will tell us whatever we want to believe, but the truth lives in the body, and that's where change occurs. Are you ready to change the narrative?
Our next guest is going to knock you out. You probably don't recognize these digits, D854/105, but our next guest does. They are the patent numbers for the first patent ever for a punching bag since 1800. This badass entrepreneurial fitness expert has managed a way to take out her mental energy, anguish, anger, sadness, anxiety, fill in the blank, in the fitness game and the creation of Skullz, the first double end punching bag. Jackson Baldwin is passionate about changing the fitness and empowerment narrative, and she is kicking some butt on the way. She uses her tough love and can-do attitude to manage physical health, and she is not playing. She's also a wife, an author, and JD's personal close friend. Welcome, Jackson Baldwin.
Okay, so first of all, I'm glad to finally have you on the show. It's been too long. But I want to go back to come forward. So I want you to think about your childhood and think about what was the theme of your upbringing? What would it be?
It was very strict. I grew up in a strict household, but I broke every rule that I could break. Got my ass beat for it. But I lived a rebellious life, from the moment I could.
Well, I know that's not a surprise to hear that that's the theme, right? Strict in rebellion. So talk about the transition into the military, how that changed the direction of your life and what you learned about yourself.
Well, I want to say that I've always pretty much followed my intuition, like whatever that little voice is that we have kind of guiding us. I knew that had I gone to college, because I went to a parochial school and it was college prep, and I was in the party. It was the 70s. I was partying. I was smoking weed every day and drinking 40s, and they took us on a tour of Kent State, and I just the whole campus smelled of weed. I was like, oh my God, if I go to this school, I already know I will probably waste my mother's money. I don't want to hear her mouth. Let me just, I decided to go into the military. So it gave me the discipline I needed. It gives you a sense of purpose and honor, and it teaches you about integrity, which I do believe that should be in school instead of prayer. This is the things that they should be learning in school, about discipline, about honor, about, back in the day, it was, your word is your bond. I don't even hear that term anymore.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, I'm glad I made that decision to go into the military. It took me all around the world. It gave me an appreciation for, even though this country has got its issues, I'm glad to be here. I've lived in several different countries. So yeah,
I think that's a great perspective for us to hear, because right now I'm hating America, but we'll get into that.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. I get it.
So you said something about what the military gave you. I'm wondering, were you heavily recruited, or did you go and
No, I sought it out. I was like, me and my buddy Dave were the only two at the time out of my class. I had a very small graduating class of 40 kids, and two of us. Everybody else went to college, and Dave and I, he went into the Marines, and I went into the Navy. I took an ASVAB test, and they told me I could choose anything I wanted to be. My dad had been in the Navy. I almost went into the Army, but I became a cryptologic technician after just picking through the book. Hey, the guy was like, just pick something after I took the test. So that's what I did. Just followed that.
Wow. And so I learned that I'm supposed to say, thank you for your sacrifice instead of thank you for your service. So thank you for your sacrifice.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. So I'm going to change gears a little bit and get into finding your birth family and how finding them informed your journey, right? Because that was yet another shift. You went, military out, and then you were just kind of setting your life up, and then you found your birth family. So talk about that.
Right. Some odd years later, I was given up for adoption at the age of, I think I was like 4 or 5. My brother, I was given up at the age of 3. My brother was 1. I was adopted at the age of 5 into a Black family. My mother's white, my dad was Black. And that journey really didn't begin because I think in the beginning, I was satisfied knowing that I was adopted, and do I need to know who this woman was? I mean, you hear all these things. She was a prostitute, she was this, she was that. And so for a long time, I wasn't really concerned or even interested in searching, even though I think in the back of my head, I always knew I would find her or search for her.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I watched The Journey of Man by a documentary by Dr. Spencer Wells that I decided, let me do this National Geographic DNA test. They were doing like some genome study or something like that. So I sent my DNA in, and I found out that my DNA traces back like 40,000 years to the Middle East, like the second migration out of Africa. So, you have years where it's like, it's ebbs and flows, where you want to find her, you don't want to find her, because I went through that. And then once I took that test, though, I was like, okay, I'm getting closer. And then when Shelby and I decided to get married, today is our 5-year anniversary.
Congratulations, happy anniversary.
Right, thank you. We decided to do the ancestry test. And then the ancestry test popped up my dad's people. And from there, my brother found my mother on Facebook, and it became a whole big episode after that. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just followed it, let's just see where this goes. Even though I knew she was a MAGA and our relationship was going to last, I knew that from the beginning.
Yeah, you did.
But I pursued it and see where it went. And, now we're not talking. So.
So just reflect on how you think. I mean, I want to get into the politics of it a little bit, but I also want to know just, mentally and emotionally, how it impacted you to be on that ride. I mean, you weren't sure you wanted to find her. Then you found her. Then there was this whole
honeymoon period. Right. It was a honeymoon period, just like any relationship.
Not. I mean, that was like a roller coaster ride.
Right. It was a roller coaster ride. But what I've come to understand is, and I want to thank my friend Spirit Corley out there, who kind of put things in perspective, that some mothers are just birth canals. They're not here to nurture and to bring you up and do all that. They're not obligated, as a matter of fact. I believe that, I understand it. But I came here and connected with the birth family that I needed to connect with. And so my mother was just the channel for me to get here and for me to do the work that I came here to do. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate her giving me life. But outside of that, well, I'm good on her. We're good.
Yeah. Look, you're saying a couple of different things. You and I have processed this a little bit. The idea that, you have to grieve. You have to grieve what you didn't know.
I grieved it. Yeah. I grieved. It was hard. It was because you're being abandoned twice, right? In one lifetime. Are you kidding me right now? It's like opening that abandonment wound twice, right? My mother abandoned her Black kids twice in one lifetime. And so, what I thought we had reconciled now is now like it's a fresh wound. And so, I grieved, and then I gave myself that opportunity to grieve, and then I let it go. And I feel good about it. I feel bad for my brother because he's more hurt than anything because she never connected with him, but that's how it is. Well, he gets got me.
he's got you, and that's more than what he needs. I also feel for him that his experience is different than yours. I understand that, he's got to go through his own process.
Right.
And I appreciate the perspective and the fact that different people in your life have been able to give you, additional lens to look through, to understand this is what it is right now. But for you to name and be able to say, hey, I had to grieve. I had to reconcile the abandonment twice. I mean, that's all significant to name that and process that. So right on. So we can't talk about that journey with the birth canal without talking about what's gone on politically in this country over the years. Let's not even say the last few years.
No.
What do people not understand that you believe they should know politically?
That the psychological warfare that we're immersed in it. It's everywhere. Psychological warfare is serious right now. And because I have an intelligence background, I thought that I would be able to recognize some of it, but because it's gone digital, you don't see it until recently. Now I understand, like some of the stuff on Facebook, it's all psychological warfare. They're doing these PSYOP operations to test things out on our behavior. What are you going to click on? And they know now that negativity is going to drive traffic. Negativity, keeping us at each other's throats, is going to make them more money. And that is what's like embedded in the code of those algorithms. There's surveillance. I mean, there's so much. That's a whole nother show.
Okay, fair enough.
In and of itself. However, I encourage people to turn off the news. Turn it off. Get your news from a legitimate, nonpartisan source. There's people out there really, really speaking truth to power. I get security briefings that, I can see what companies are being hacked and that kind of stuff. So, kind of immerse yourself in that stuff and how to counter propaganda, how to counter some of the PSYOP stuff. And that is what I did on Facebook. I spent about 2 hours deleting every liked page, every corporate page, any page that they asked me to like, whether it was AAA, whether it was this page, or they want you to like all these companies and these brands and this. I unliked everything. I unliked all the news things. And now my feed is just filled with people like you on my feed. I don't get anything from Fox News or Breitbart. I used to get a bunch of crap from Breitbart on these feeds, even though I've never clicked on a Breitbart link, right?
Right.
But the algorithms are designed to get you to look over here. Okay, let me click on that, because every time you do, you're gonna pay Facebook. Facebook gets paid. So so that's one of the
it's the clickbait. Right. So all right, so you're saying something really important here, and I want to make sure that people understand, because not everybody has the same access to understanding the negativity you're talking about. And people are drawn to it. I follow, on social media, I follow a lot of activists. And I don't think that that's negative. I feel like I get accurate information from them. And it seems like in real time, but I've never been a follower of the news. It's so whitewashed and so corporate. I mean, how can the news be informative when they're paid? It's like, it doesn't make sense to me. So that's curious. But you're saying something else about the negativity that I think is important, and that the psychological aspect of being fed the fear. That's what I hear you saying, the fear. Like they are out to get you. That's what's being fed. They are out to get you, right?
Yes. And that tactic has been used for a long time. Nixon is the one that put it into his campaign. The Southern strategy is all about negativity. That's it. Make Black people look bad. Make them look like criminals, druggies. It works.
Yeah. The thing I can't get out of my mind recently is how Hitler looked at enslavement the base of enslavement, the strategies used to inform what he did.
Yes.
I don't understand how that's lost on people.
Because it's not taught to people. If you didn't read Caste by Isabel Woodford, you're not going to know that, because I sure as hell didn't know it until I read her book. The Zen Education Project, those guys are educating people about untold history in this country. So yeah, it is lost on people because it's not taught.
Yeah. You know, Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi is another one that gives you that history in such a way that it's an eye opener. The things you thought you knew, but you actually didn't know. That's one of the things that I think is super important for people to understand, that little nuance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you said something about, you said caste was one of the things that informed you well. What was the other thing? I missed it.
No, that was an eye-opening book for me, because, you know, now I'm really good at connecting the dots. And when she connected those dots between what Hitler did by studying how the laws for slaves and how the Jim Crow laws, they studied all of that, right? They studied the Jim Crow laws and then kind of came up with their own way of how to treat the people that they wanted to oppress and commit genocide against. So, you know, right. And that mindset has spread all around the country. I remember when I was driving Uber when it first started years ago, and I picked up a woman, a South Asian woman from India, in my car. And she goes, you know, she's informing me that the darker Indian women now are lightening their skin, right? Trying to be lighter,
right? Because
colonization has just spread all across the world, like that people want to be white. Are you serious right now? I was like, they're doing the lightning cream, like other people are doing lightning cream. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah. that's the psychological impact of having people hate themselves to a point, you know, they're trying to change the complexion of their skin. It's deep.
Yeah, that's been going on for a long time. The whole caste system.
Long time, right?
It's so deep. It's so deep. There's such a depth of self-hatred that you don't want to see who you are in the mirror. It's so sad.
All right. Yep.
You've been taught to hate yourself to that degree. It plays itself out in so many different ways. So I feel you on that. So let's segue into the mental health as a distraction to gun reform. I know you got something to say about that.
Oh my God. That's the excuse they're using right now, that he was mentally ill, that he was bullied in school. Give me a fucking break. They say that all the time, as long as the domestic terrorist is white, or as long as the domestic terror is killing brown and black people, they're going to always give you that excuse. But like, always that excuse.
You and I texted about this the other day. You know, mental illness is a problem in America. Let's just say that. But every time someone murders, they want to say it's a mental health issue to distract from potential gun reform or potentially getting out of bed with the NRA. How do you think that is translated for people? How do people buy into that? What are your thoughts on that?
People are sick of it. I mean, right now, the American people are sick of being held hostage by a minority of individuals being paid off to, you know, let gun holders do whatever they want. Trump came into office and pretty much wiped out. He repealed the Obama's legislation or whatever his policy was on getting these guys, what do you call it? They have to have background checks, or they had to have, for mental illness, you could not get a gun, or you had to have extra steps. Trump came in office and repealed that. This is intentional. Right. This is intentional by white society. These white, scary men are afraid of losing power. So they really honestly believe that enough lone wolves can go and just kill up everybody. so that they stay the majority. I don't understand it, but they like it because they make money off of it.
Yeah, it's all about capitalism.
All about capitalism. So that's the bottom line.
Yep, I agree with you. All right, I want to talk about your past year. You have had an unbelievable past year. I don't even think there's a word big enough for the past year you've had between the pandemic and life events. There's not, I don't even have a word that's big enough, to be honest with you.
It was horrific. It was a hell of a ride.
Man, so it's a great transition to talk about your book, Fight Goddess Fitness, Beating the Odds, A Caretaker's Journey, a story about cancer, chemo, and caretaking. I need you to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. That, pretty much it was, I had to do a lot of self-reflecting. I had to do a lot of checking myself. I just knew that my wife's life was in danger, and nothing, there was nothing more important than that. So, it was an emotional toll that I've just never experienced before. You think grieving somebody that's passed is hard, but grieving, what your partner is going through at the time they're going through it, when it seems like they're not going to make it, is just the hardest thing I think I've ever had to go through.
You are the type of person, I've known you a long time. You're the type of person who's like, I remember when I got my knee replacement surgery and they weren't giving me enough PT. And you were like, I'm coming over. I got some bands. We're going to do this. Move like this. Move like that.
Right.
Like you got me in the flow, even though I wanted to punch you out. You pushed me. You got me there. And I really thought about that when, Shelbs got the diagnosis. I really thought, I was like, how is CB going to, pull that out with the potential emotional toll? And how could you both not be scared of what was ahead?
Yeah,
so,
right.
What did you employ? You're not into religiosity.
Mm-mm.
What did you employ to be the core, the foundation of her support?
We went into fight mode. And one of the reasons was because I loved her doctor. Usually I'm very critical of doctors, but he kind of set the tone. He never told her that she was in stage 4. And he looked at her straight in the eye and said, you can beat this. And he kind of put that, once he planted that seed, we knew that she was going to have to go through this. In the back of my mind, of course, I'm fearful that my wife could, this chemo treatment's not going to work and she could pass away. Mm-hmm. But we went into fight mode and I wanted to give her every opportunity. So I did some research, I like called my folks, like, what do I need? And so I put a little regimen together. My friend Roz helped me with the supplements because she has a friend that owns a health food store. And I walked out of there, a big box of stuff, but essentially it's combating the effects of the chemo, because the chemo, once you take the chemo, she's good for a couple of days, but it's the side effects, it's the stuff that comes after. That's the hard part that drains and weakens you. So once we went into fight mode, you're going to go like this, you're in fight mode, and then you're going to hit a wall. And we'd sit and cry. I mean, because she's in so much pain. I hated to see her like that, but then we get up and do it again. And so you just go through the motions and you don't think you have the will, but you do,
That's amazing.
And so
that's amazing.
Kept pushing. Yeah.
Well, you guys are definitely role models in the community for getting through it and getting to the other side. I have nothing but love and respect for both of you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
What did you learn about yourself, your wife, and your marriage through that journey?
That I realized I had a moment in the kitchen. I hate doing dishes, but I had a moment in the kitchen where I came to the realization that all the twists and turns and everything that I did in my life, fucking up and doing this, coming to Cali, and it was so that I could be for her at that time.
Man.
And I felt that through my bones.
Wow.
Because before I met her, like in the story, you know, I knew that had I gone to Palm Springs, I was going to meet the woman I was going to marry. And I felt that in my gut. And and I knew it was meant to happen, because when I said, okay, no, maybe I won't go, those parties are too expensive. I'm not paying $60 to get to a party. And my buddy was like, yo, I need you to roll with me to Palm Springs. And when she said that, I was like, oh, it was meant to be. I know I'm going to meet the woman I'm going to marry. And that's exactly what happened.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's great. And so now that you have come through this, what are you standing on? What's holding you up now?
I'm right now, I'm very grateful. Every day I wake up very grateful to be in the space that we're in. Gratitude really propels me a long way. And I'm focused on the next half of our journey. You know, we just turned 60. I just turned 61.
Yes, welcome.
So, right. So, you know, it's like, what are we going to do? I'm in semi-retirement. So let's plan that chapter and live the rest of our lives like we want to live, because that, to me, is freedom. You know, living like you want to live without anybody telling you what to do. That's why I work for myself.
So talk about the Rocco recovery.
Took me 4 days.
this 4-day Rocco birthday recovery. What that look like?
You know, I'm like, 1 minute I was fine, JD, and the next minute it was like when we were at that party with Superstar. Here, one more. Oh, it was sad. It was pathetic.
Yo, your picture, that I was dying when I saw Facebook. You were like, me walking by Rockos. That was the best.
Okay, that was
okay. All right, so let's talk about your various projects before we wrap up. First of all, talk about how Skullz came to be, the boxing bag that I love.
Right.
Talk about that.
I'll make you a new one, because I've kind of revised them a little bit, but it came to be because I was working out I was working with my fighters in a gym in Burbank, and a guy from Quest Fitness, guys make those Quest Fitness bars.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, they had created an equipment training division, and their one of the guys came in, and he had this head in his hand, and it was like a plastic head, but it had a handle on the inside, and it was shaped like a dude's head. And he wanted us to test it out. And I looked at it right away, and I could see, because of the way the handle was situated inside this head that's empty, right? Because you hit it and it kind of digs in a little bit.
Okay.
I could tell him that right now you're going to break somebody's wrist with this, because you shouldn't be holding anything like this as somebody's punching. You know, they're punching, you're holding it like this, and the people are punching it. So I told him he should, you know, right away I started giving him, and we kind of struck up a conversation. I told him I didn't say I was an inventor, but I said, hey, I got an idea for a double end bag. And I went home and I scratched it out on a piece of paper and made a prototype, and I sent it to him, and he offered me like $1,000. Let's just say it was a very insulting fee for this licensing deal. And I was like, you know what? I could do this myself. And I hired a patent attorney. I found one cheaper because he was in North Carolina, and we went to town. We went to work and got that patent. So it took a couple of years, but we made it happen.
Okay, so you got to talk about how you made it, because I still can't get over that. Tell people how you actually made it.
How I actually made it was, I bought first I had to look for a 3D skull file that I liked, because the skull face mattered to me. And there's a bunch of ugly skulls out there, but I found one, and I had to buy a 3D printer. So one of my clients bought the printer for me. It's a 3D printer. I had to make the mold with the 3D printer. I made the skull head, and then I had to do a couple other things to get it the way I want it, shape it, all that kind of stuff. Then I made a mold out of it. Then I used because there's a there's a special effects place in Burbank that I pick up all those equipment. They make special effects, all those bricks and stuff you see that look like bricks. They're really not bricks. They're like this foam material. So I got the foam. I had to find which foam to get. And then I just kept building and building. And then the one first head was big, like life size, kind of big like your head. And then, and then the other one, I was like, okay, that's too big. Let me pare it down a little bit. So I pared it down to the size it is now, which is about equivalent to a regular double end bag. And then I put funky designs and tattoos on them. I made a Bruce Lee one that sent it out to my friend. I've made a glow in the dark one for a couple of friends. So yeah, you could do any. That's what I like about it. They're like customized. But I had to make a couple of adjustments in terms of the steelware, the hardware that's on there. But it's a pretty good bag.
No, it's a great bag. It actually is a great bag. It's a great workout. I'm impressed with it. That story blows me away every time I hear it. I'm like, you did what? Where?
Yeah, I learned how to make the mold on YouTube.
I can't even. I don't even understand the language you're speaking when you talk like that.
Right.
All right, so let's get to a couple more things before we wrap up. Talk about your workout mentality as a trainer. What is it you want to get across to people?
That activity is more important than anything else. And what you eat, because as we age, our digestive system changes. Things that I ate years ago, I can no longer eat. They make you bloated, or you could be allergic to this or allergic to that. So I encourage people to continue to tweak their diets till they find something that works for them. And for women over the age of 50, I always encourage them to eat a lot of fiber, add a little bit more protein, stay away from sugar, fat, all that kind of crap, processed foods, and just stay active. That's
So when you take a client on, are you dealing with the nutritional aspect as well as the physical workout?
Sometimes. I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't give you nutritional advice. I can recommend things to you. So I have a list of foods that I recommend that they build their meals off of, right? Okay. So, and there's something on there for everybody. And so I gave that list to a friend of mine, LGBT Hollywood, Renee and MJ will talk. And Renee has lost like 30 pounds. She's like, Chris, I have not been this size since I was in my 20s or 30s. She's in a pair of jeans that she has not worn in 15 or 20 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And she's a vegetarian. So, That's what I said. So the list has something for everybody on there, whether you eat meat, whether you're vegan, whether you're vegetarian, you can use that list because it's just all good, healthy, low glycemic foods.
And in terms of what a person's physical capacity is, so you assess where they are physically, and then you help them get to where they want to be.
Absolutely, I did that today. So the guy, a doctor, so I'm training his wife, and then she was like, "You need to stretch my husband for an hour." Well, okay, I could stretch him for an hour, but I need to give him assessment first. And then when I assessed him, he's got a lot of postural distortion. So I'm not just going to stretch you. I told you and he's been working out for a year, but he's lifting weights on top of bad posture, on top of horrible form. And, his shoulders are like this. And so I told him, and right away he was like, how come we're not working on my hips? I was like, because you got some other stuff going on we need to talk about. So that's what, and then once I started talking to him, he realized, he's like, okay, you're right. It's like, dude, your core is weak. I gave him just a basic old assessment, a SWOT assessment. And he failed it. No, I'm just kidding. No, he didn't fail, but he gives me an idea of where he is. And so it just helped me. And then he did get the stretching, but it was a lot later into the program. So.
Okay. All right. That's great. All right. So two more questions. One, talk about the L Project, what's coming up.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm like thrilled. The L Project is, Elizabeth Sandberg was our founder, and she started in 2015. And it's an art and tech focused organization for LGBTQ BIPOC. We're BIPOC focused for emerging artists. But I created Women's Freedom Festival in 2019 just to celebrate the emerging artists in our community. But now to raise awareness around domestic violence and certain other social issues. And now with this current political climate, Women's Freedom Festival is going to honor Melanie Nathan with the Women's Freedom Award, because she literally is running an modern day underground railroad for LGBT folks. Wow. Trying to escape, being criminalized in their home country. So we're trying to raise awareness and amplify those voices that are really fighting for full freedom and equality, because we don't have full freedoms and equality, and until we do, we got to keep on fighting. So we're part of Pride this year. I'm excited about that. The city of West Hollywood has co-sponsored this event. You guys can check us out at thelproject.org. You can follow us on Instagram at lprojectla, and that's and Twitter too. We're on Twitter.
That's what I was going to say. Okay. And then tell everyone where they can find their training needs at Fight Goddess. Go for it.
That's right. FightGoddessFitness.com, baby. Come see me. Or hit me up on Instagram, Fight Goddess Fitness. I'm on Instagram.
Okay. Fight Goddess Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, and your website.
That's FightGoddessFitness.com. Yeah.
Okay. So final word. How do I want to phrase this? We always talk about changing the narrative. That's how we end every show. Mm-hmm. So talk about what changing the narrative means to you, because you have a lot of different irons and a lot of different fires. So I kind of want to pull it together and collectively think about,
Right now, I'm like so distraught by what's going on. My thing with the DNC is recruiting candidates that are fighters, because the DNC likes to get candidates that want to ride the middle of the line and be everything for everybody. But our democracy is under attack. So we need people fighting for our constitutional rights. And so in my head, changing the narrative means that, like Sherilyn Ifill says, we cannot leave power on the table. You have to vote. I don't care if your vote is suppressed. I don't care if you live in a gerrymandered district. You need to get out there and exercise the little power that we have. And collectively, it's a big power. And if we do that on a local level and continue to do that on the state level and then a national level, we can push these stupid ass MAGA knuckleheads out of office.
Okay, so wait, let me add something to that before we end. My question is, what do you say to this group of people who are saying the two-party system isn't working, we need something else? What are you saying to them right now? You can't
change we operate and vote in a two-party system. So either you join the Democratic Party to turn that party the way we want it from the inside out, or you join a third party that hurts the party that is that we can actually manipulate and we can change. And if you've seen that the progressives, Bernie Sanders, the socialists, the Democratic Socialist Party, they have gone into the Democratic Party and they are changing it from the inside out. And we have to continue to do that. We have a two-party system. I tell people this all the time. There's no voting third party. You want to help the minority party, you want to keep them in power, then keep voting third party. Okay, voting third party is a waste. Voting third party is a plus for MAGA heads, for Christo-fascist people that want us, locked down. They want to lock women down. So that's what, it's the Democrats or no way.
And then the other thing is that, you have to give a little bit of money. Like, people have to get into the mindset. I've donated to every
$5.
Whatever you can.
Whatever.
I mean, that's what the conservatives have. They will give money to keep control, and
They
people
sure
like,
will.
don't want anything to do with the politicians and sit back and don't realize it takes money to fight.
Exactly.
Got to put some money into it.
Exactly.
All right, buddy. Of course, we're not done. We have stuff to do together, but it's great spending time with you. Thanks for coming on. You know, I love you, man.